Dr. Elias Carter's hands trembled as he tightened the straps of his emergency medkit. His heart pounded against his ribs, but he forced himself to stay calm. Panic never saved lives. Training, discipline, that's what mattered. The smoke of his crashed shuttle still curled into the sky behind him, a dark scar against the twilight of an unknown planet. The ship's emergency beacon blinked weakly, sending out distress signals into the vast emptiness of space. But Elias had no idea if anyone would hear them, or if help would arrive before it was too late. The planet was silent. Too silent. Elias adjusted the strap of his backpack and gripped his plasma pistol. He wasn't a soldier, not really. Sure, he had trained with them, worked on the front lines, patched up wounds in the middle of enemy fire, but he was a medic first, a healer before anything else. His job was to save lives, not take them. A gust of wind howled through the dead landscape, lifting the dust in eerie spirals. Ruins stretched before him. Old metal structures, rusted towers, shattered buildings covered in claw marks and burned scars. A battlefield long abandoned. But then he heard it. A sound. Faint. Weak. A voice. Elias turned sharply, scanning the wreckage. He moved carefully, stepping over broken metal and cracked stone. His breath caught when he saw her. A figure lay half-buried beneath debris. A Jerek. Elias stiffened. The Jerek were a warrior species, ruthless in battle, and known for their hatred of humanity. His instincts screamed danger. But then he saw the truth. She was dying. The alien woman's armor was cracked, her deep red skin covered in black burns. A jagged wound ran along her side, her breathing shallow and unsteady. Her four-fingered hands twitched weakly, as if she was trying to reach for something. Maybe a weapon, maybe hope. Elias crouched beside her, already assessing her wounds. Plasma burns, internal bleeding, possible spinal damage. She needed treatment fast. But she opened her glowing yellow eyes and locked onto him. A snarl formed on her lips. Human. The word was barely a whisper, filled with hatred and pain. Elias sighed. He had seen this too many times. Wounded soldiers too stubborn to accept help, too proud to admit weakness. He ignored her weak protest and pulled out his medical scanner. "Yeah, I'm human," he muttered, scanning her injuries. "And you're dying." She tried to push him away, but she was too weak. The effort alone seemed to drain the last of her energy, and she slumped back, gasping. Elias didn't hesitate. He reached into his medkit, pulled out a vial of stabilizer serum, and injected it into her arm. The medicine would slow her internal bleeding, but it wasn't enough. She needed real treatment, and soon. Elias sat back on his heels, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Why was she even here? The war had moved past this sector months ago. No humans, no Jerek, nothing but ghosts. So why was she left behind? More importantly, where were the rest of her people? His fingers clenched around the edge of his medkit. He knew the answer already. The Jerek didn't believe in weakness. If she was left behind, it meant they abandoned her on purpose. His stomach twisted. He had seen soldiers leave their own behind before, but never like this. Never so coldly. A flicker of movement pulled his attention back to her. Her eyes struggled to focus, but her lips moved slightly. He leaned in. "Why?" she rasped. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Why what?" She swallowed with difficulty. "Why? Help." Elias exhaled. He could have said a lot of things. That it was his job. That he was trained to help anyone, no matter the species. That he didn't have it in him to watch someone die when he could stop it. But instead, he simply said, "Because no one else will." Her breathing hitched slightly. Then, for the first time, she looked at him not as an enemy, but as a doctor. Elias pulled a thermal blanket from his pack and draped it over her before checking his scanner again. Her condition was still critical. She needed something more than field medicine. His mind raced. There had to be a supply depot, an outpost, something nearby. If not human, then Jarek. He turned back to the wounded alien. If I'm going to save your life, I need to know something. Is there a Jarek base nearby? Her tired eyes met his. A long pause. Then, weakly, she gave him a single word. North. Elias nodded. His decision was made. Strapping his medkit to his back, he tightened his grip on his pistol. If the Jarek wouldn't save her, then he would, even if it cost him everything. The night was colder than Elias expected. He adjusted his jacket, his breath turning into mist as he sat beside the unconscious alien. The ruins around them stretched like the bones of a dead city, silent except for the occasional whisper of the wind. Varish, he had learned her name from a small insignia on her damaged armor, was still breathing, but barely. The stabilizer serum had kept her alive, but it wasn't a cure. She needed real treatment, and for that Elias had to find the Jarek outpost to the north. He glanced at her. Taking her with him would be risky. She was badly injured, and moving her could make things worse. But leaving her alone wasn't an option either. If scavengers or enemy patrols came by, she wouldn't survive the night. Elias sighed. Why do I always end up in these situations? Gritting his teeth, he got to work. He fashioned a makeshift stretcher from debris and his emergency survival kit, carefully securing Varish onto it. Every time he moved her, she let out a weak growl of pain, but didn't wake up. Her body was running on empty, struggling to keep going. Hang in there, Elias muttered. You're not dying on my watch. With that, he grabbed the straps of the stretcher and started pulling. The journey was slow, too slow. Elias dragged the stretcher across uneven ground, through wreckage, over broken roads where old battles had been fought and forgotten. The north was a long way off, and his muscles ached from the effort. Twice, he had to stop when he heard distant mechanical sounds, likely automated drones scanning the area. He pressed himself against the ruins, holding his breath until they passed. He had no weapons that could fight a drone. If they spotted him, it was over. After what felt like hours, the ruins opened up into a barren field, and in the distance, he saw it, a structure hidden among jagged cliffs. The Jarek outpost. A surge of relief washed over him. If he could reach it, he might find the neuro-serum Varish needed, but relief quickly turned to dread. The outpost looked abandoned. Its power lights flickered weakly. Some of the buildings had collapsed, and the main gates hung open like broken teeth. Elias narrowed his eyes. He had seen places like this before, a battlefield that was never cleaned up. Great, he muttered. Just great. Elias hid the stretcher behind a pile of debris and checked Varish's pulse. Weak, but steady. He couldn't risk taking her inside. If the place was dangerous, he had to go alone. He pulled his pistol free, holding it close as he stepped into the outpost. The air smelled of rust and decay. The corridors were empty, the walls marked with plasma burns, signs of a battle fought not long ago. He moved carefully, searching the rooms. Some were completely destroyed, others filled with Jarek bodies, left behind, unburied. Elias clenched his jaw. He wasn't a soldier, but even he could see what had happened here. They had been abandoned, just like Varish. A faint beep broke the silence. Elias snapped his gun up, heart hammering. But it was only a small medical console still active in the corner. A miracle. He hurried over and searched the database. Neuroserum. There, one vial left. He opened the storage unit, and the last remaining serum container sat inside. Carefully, he grabbed it and tucked it into his pack. Now, to get out of here. But the moment he turned, the ground rumbled. Elias froze. A mechanical voice echoed through the ruined outpost. Unauthorized presence detected. His blood turned to ice. An automated security system was still active. From the ceiling, a turret whirred to life, its red sensors locking onto him. Damn it. Elias dove behind a metal crate as the turret opened fire, plasma rounds slamming into the floor where he had just stood. Sparks and debris flew through the air. He peeked out, his mind racing. His pistol was useless against automated defenses. If he stayed here, he was dead. Then he saw it, a control panel on the far wall. If he could reach it, he might be able to disable the turret, but it was a long shot. No choice. Elias bolted. Plasma fire chased him, the heat singing his jacket as he sprinted across the room. His feet pounded against the metal floor as he reached the control panel, fingers flying over the keys. Come on, come on. The turret's barrel glowed bright as it prepared for a final shot. And then, silence. Elias panted, his hands still on the panel. The turret powered down. He had done it. He exhaled, his heart still racing. He grabbed the serum from his pack and turned back toward the exit. Varish was waiting. He couldn't waste any more time. By the time he returned to her, the sky was lighter, dawn breaking over the ruins. Elias knelt beside Varish, carefully opening the serum vial. All right, let's hope this works. He injected the serum into her arm. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then her body jerked. Her breathing quickened, her eyes fluttering open. She gasped, sharp and desperate, her yellow eyes locking onto him. For a moment, she looked confused. Then she exhaled. You? Her voice was weak, but there was no hatred in it this time. Only disbelief. Elias smirked, exhaustion hitting him all at once. Yeah, me, the stupid human who just saved your life. She blinked slowly, staring at him. Then finally, she stopped fighting. Elias leaned back, looking up at the rising sun. He had won this round. But something told him the real fight was just beginning. Elias Carter sat back, wiping the sweat from his forehead. The serum had worked, at least for now. Varish was alive, but she was far from healed. Her breathing had steadied, and her eyes were open, but her body was still weak, and pain flickered across her face with every small movement. She stared at him, her yellow eyes filled with something he couldn't quite name. Suspicion, confusion, gratitude? No, that couldn't be it. The Sherrick didn't thank humans. Elias sighed. Doesn't matter. I did my job. He reached into his pack, pulling out a canteen. Drink, he said, offering it to her. Varish hesitated, then slowly reached for it with trembling fingers. She brought it to her lips and took small, careful sips. The moment the water hit her throat, she winced but forced herself to keep drinking. Elias studied her carefully. The serum had stabilized her, but it wasn't enough. Her internal injuries were still serious. Without proper treatment, she wouldn't survive long. More, she rasped. Elias handed her a small nutrient bar. Eat, but slow. Your body isn't ready for too much at once. Varish took it, staring at the food before taking a careful bite. She chewed slowly, her sharp teeth breaking through the tough bar. Minutes passed in silence. Then she finally spoke. Why did you save me? Elias raised an eyebrow. I already told you. No one else was going to. Varish's jaw tightened. That is not an answer. Elias sighed, rubbing his face. He was exhausted, hungry, and sore from dragging her all the way to safety. And now she wanted answers. Look, I'm a medic. It's my job. I don't care if you're Sherrick, human, or a giant space lizard. If someone is dying, I save them. Varish was silent for a moment. Then her voice turned cold. Even your enemies. Elias met her gaze. Yeah, even them. She didn't seem to know how to respond to that. She simply looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then she frowned. The serum, it is working, but something is wrong. Elias tensed. What do you mean? She touched her side, wincing. Pain, growing again, not normal. His stomach dropped. He grabbed his medical scanner and ran it over her body. His eyes widened at the results. The neuro serum was failing. It had bought them time, but her body was rejecting it. The wounds inside her were too severe, and without a specific regenerative agent, one he didn't have, she wouldn't last more than a few hours. Elias clenched his fists. Damn it. He had come all this way, risked his life, fought through an abandoned outpost, and it still wasn't enough. Varish watched him carefully. You understand now, she said quietly. Elias swallowed hard. Yeah, I do. She exhaled. Then leave. Elias blinked. What? Varish turned her head slightly, staring at the rising sun. You have done more than any human would, but this is my end. Her voice was steady, but there was something behind it. Acceptance. Resignation. Elias glanced at her. That's a good thing, right? Varish hesitated. Or a trap. Elias sighed. Of course. Still, they had no choice. Stay close, he muttered. Varish nodded, and together they stepped inside. The inside of the stronghold was dark and cold. The air smelled of dust and old power cells, and broken consoles flickered weakly on the walls. Elias took slow, careful steps. Where's the healing chamber? Varish exhaled. Deeper inside. Past the war hall. Elias stopped. The what? Before Varish could answer, a low hum echoed through the hall. Elias's gut tightened. Something was waking up. Move, Varish hissed, grabbing his arm and pulling him forward. A red light blinked on the walls. A mechanical voice boomed through the halls. Unauthorized presence detected. Initiating defense protocol. Elias swore. Tell me that's not what I think it is. Varish's face darkened. The stronghold's AI is still active. A loud clanking sound came from behind them. Elias turned, just in time to see a sentry drone drop from the ceiling, its metal arms unfolding as its red sensors locked onto them. Elias didn't think. He grabbed Varish and shoved her behind cover as the drone's plasma turret fired, scorching the ground where they had just stood. Varish winced in pain, her injuries slowing her down. We must disable it. Elias peeked out. The drone was heavily armored, too strong for his pistol, but the hallway above had loose cables and broken beams. An idea hit him. Can you distract it? He asked. Varish's expression hardened. You are insane. Yeah, but that's not an answer. She exhaled sharply. Then, with a grunt, she forced herself to her feet. Go, she whispered. Elias moved fast. As Varish darted left, drawing the drone's fire, Elias climbed a broken pillar. The drone didn't notice him, until it was too late. With all his strength, Elias kicked a loose beam, sending a mass of wires and debris crashing down onto the drone. Sparks flew as it jerked and twitched, its sensors flickering. Then, finally, it stopped moving. Silence. Elias dropped down, panting. Tell me that was the only one. Varish smirked weakly. Unlikely. Elias groaned. You're really bad at making me feel better. Varish leaned against the wall, pressing a hand to her wound. We must move. The AI will send more. Elias cursed under his breath, but nodded. They had to keep going. After several minutes of tense silence, they reached a massive door covered in Jirak markings. The healing chamber is inside, Varish said, stepping forward. She pressed her hand against the scanner. The door did not open. Varish's expression darkened. No. Elias frowned. What's wrong? Varish's fingers curled into a fist. It will not open for me. Elias's heart sank. Because you were abandoned. Varish hesitated, then nodded. Elias clenched his jaw. They had come so far. He wasn't about to let some stupid lock stop them now. He studied the control panel. It was old, but still functional. If he could override the security system. Stand back, he muttered, pulling out his multi-tool. Varish gave him a confused look. You can break Jirak security. Elias smirked. I can try. He got to work, his fingers moving quickly. Sparks flew as he bypassed power circuits, rerouted data lines, and forced an override command. The panel beeped angrily, then flickered. Access granted. The door rumbled open. Varish stared at him. You are full of surprises, human. Elias grinned. You have no idea. Inside, the healing chamber glowed with soft blue light. Elias helped Varish inside, carefully placing her in the medical pod. All right, this thing better work. Varish exhaled slowly. It will. The pod sealed shut, and a soft hum filled the room as the chamber activated. Elias stepped back, watching as the system scanned her body, repairing damaged tissues and stabilizing her condition. His legs felt weak. His job was finally done. He sank against the wall, letting out a long breath. Varish, inside the chamber, looked at him one last time before closing her eyes. For the first time since he met her, Elias saw something in her face. Peace. Elias leaned against the wall, watching the healing chamber work. Soft blue light pulsed around Varish as the machine repaired her body, regenerating damaged tissue and stabilizing her failing organs. He sighed in relief. She was going to survive. His muscles ached, exhaustion creeping into his bones. His hands were still covered in dust from fighting that security drone, and his heart was still pounding from the close call at the entrance. But at least now, for the first time since he found Varish, he could breathe. Then, a noise. Elias's body tensed. A faint clanking sound echoed from the hallway. He immediately reached for his pistol, his heartbeat quickening. The AI should have been disabled, but something was still moving outside. He glanced at the healing chamber. Varish was unconscious inside, unable to defend herself. If something was coming, he'd have to deal with it alone. Elias took a deep breath and moved to the doorway, keeping his footsteps quiet. His grip tightened on his pistol as he peeked into the hallway. At first, there was only silence. The air was thick with dust, and the red emergency lights flickered weakly. Then, out of the darkness, a shadow moved. Elias froze. The shape stepped closer, revealing a towering Xerac warrior. But this wasn't just any soldier. Its armor was old and battle-scarred, and its glowing red eyes marked it as something unnatural. Its movements were mechanical, its skin patched with metal plating. It wasn't alive. A warform. A reanimated Xerac soldier turned into a machine. Elias swallowed hard. Great. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse. The warform turned its head, its sensors locking onto him. A deep metallic voice echoed through the hall. Human detected. Unauthorized presence. Eliminating. Damn it. Elias dived to the side as the warform raised its arm, a built-in energy weapon charging. A blast of plasma sizzled past him, burning a hole into the wall. He hit the ground hard, rolling behind cover as the warform took slow, heavy steps forward. I can't fight this thing. His pistol was useless against that thick armor. He needed a plan. Fast. His eyes flicked around the room, searching for anything useful. Then he spotted it, a broken power conduit in the ceiling, sparking with loose energy cables. That'll do. Keeping low, Elias grabbed a piece of metal debris and threw it toward the opposite wall. The noise distracted the warform for half a second, but that was all he needed. Elias sprinted forward, sliding beneath the warform's massive arm just as it turned back toward him. The warform fired, but missed. Elias jumped, grabbing onto the broken power conduit. Sparks burned his fingers, but he yanked hard, ripping the cable free. Electricity crackled wildly, filling the air with the sharp smell of burning metal. The warform turned to face him, raising its arm for another shot. Elias didn't give it the chance. With a grunt, he swung the cable downward, slanting it into the warform's back. Lightning surged through its body. The warform jerked violently, its limbs locking up as electricity flooded its circuits. For a moment, Elias thought it wasn't enough. Then, boom. The warform's chest exploded, sending sparks and smoke bursting into the air. The mechanical giant staggered, its glowing red eyes flickering. And then, with a final shudder, it collapsed to the floor, motionless. Elias didn't move for several seconds. His breath came in short gasps, his hands still shaking from the fight. Then, finally, he let out a long breath. It was over. He stumbled back into the healing chamber room, his legs feeling like they might give out. Varish was still inside, her body now glowing softly as the healing process neared completion. Elias dropped onto the floor beside the chamber, leaning his head back against the wall. "Next time," he muttered to himself, "remind me to bring a bigger gun." Minutes passed. Then, with a soft hiss, the healing chamber unlocked. Elias sat up quickly as the door slid open, revealing Varish inside. She stepped forward, her movements now smooth and steady. The deep wounds on her body were gone, her breathing strong again. Her golden eyes shone with new life. Elias smirked. "Well, look at that. You're not dead." Varish looked at her hands, flexing her fingers as if testing them. Then she met his gaze. "You saved me," she said simply. Elias shrugged. "Yeah, well, I wasn't about to let you die after all that work." She tilted her head slightly. "You also fought a war form." Elias winced, rubbing his sore arm. "Yeah, not my best decision." Varish took a step forward, then another. Elias frowned. "You okay?" Varish didn't answer. Instead, she did something unexpected. She dropped to one knee, a formal Jarek gesture of gratitude and respect. Elias blinked in surprise. What are you doing?" Varish's voice was steady. "Among my people, a warrior only kneels before one who has earned their life debt." Elias swallowed. "That's dramatic." Varish stood again. "It is our way." Elias sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Look, you don't owe me anything. I just did what any medic would do." Varish's gaze hardened. "No, you did what no human, no one, would do. You risked your life for an enemy." Elias hesitated, then shook his head. "Not an enemy, just someone who needed help." Varish studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she smiled. It was small, barely there, but it was real. Elias smirked. "So, now that you're not dying, what's next?" Varish's golden eyes gleamed. "Now," she said, "now we leave this place together." Elias grinned. "Sounds good to me." And for the first time, they walked out side by side. Elias adjusted the strap of his pack and exhaled deeply. His body still ached from the fight with the warform, but there was no time to rest. The Jarek stronghold had been dangerous, but now that Varish was healed, they had only one goal: escape. Varish stood beside him, her posture strong and steady. The healing chamber had done its job well. Her wounds were gone, and the weakness in her body had vanished. But there was something different about her now. She wasn't just a wounded survivor anymore. She was a warrior again. Elias smirked. "So, you ready to get out of here?" Varish nodded. "Yes, but we must be careful. The AI may not be the only thing left in this place." Elias sighed. "Right. More fun surprises." They moved cautiously through the silent corridors of the stronghold. The flickering red lights cast eerie shadows, making every step feel heavier than it should. Elias kept his pistol ready, his eyes scanning the surroundings. "So what's the plan?" "We just walk out the front door and hope for the best." Varish shook her head. "No, there is a secondary exit, one used for emergencies. It is hidden, but I know where to find it." Elias raised an eyebrow. "And you're just telling me this now?" Varish glanced at him. "You never asked." Elias groaned. Unbelievable. They moved deeper into the stronghold. The silence was unsettling. No more warforms, no more drones, just the distant hum of old machinery and the sound of their footsteps against the metal floor. It felt too quiet. Elias didn't like it. "You sure we're alone?" he whispered. Varish's golden eyes scanned the darkness. "No, we are being hunted." Elias stopped. "What?" Varish's expression was calm, but her muscles were tense. "Something is watching us." Elias swallowed. Fantastic. Just what they needed. They reached an old maintenance tunnel. The walls were lined with rusted pipes, and the air smelled of dust and stale energy. "This leads to the exit?" Elias asked. Varish nodded. "Yes, but we must move quickly." They stepped inside, moving carefully. The tunnel stretched into the distance, disappearing into blackness. Then, suddenly, a sound. A deep, low growl echoed through the tunnel. Elias froze. "That's not a war form, is it?" Varish's grip on her weapon tightened. "No, it is worse." Before Elias could respond, something lunged from the darkness. A massive beast, covered in dark metallic scales, charged toward them. Its eyes glowed red, and long claws scraped against the floor as it moved with terrifying speed. Elias barely had time to react before Varish pushed him aside. The creature's claws splashed through the air, missing him by inches. Elias hit the ground, rolling to the side as the beast turned toward Varish. She did not run. Instead, she stood her ground, her body shifting into a battle stance. The creature snarled. Then it attacked. Varish moved like lightning. She ducked under its swiping claws, twisting her body with inhuman speed. Her hands glowed with a faint blue energy, and with a single motion, she slammed her fist into the beast's chest. A shockwave rippled through the air. The creature stumbled back, growling in pain. Elias scrambled to his feet, pulling out his pistol. "What the hell is that thing?" Varish didn't take her eyes off the beast. A war beast. The Jarek created them to hunt survivors. Elias's stomach dropped. "You mean it's a bioweapon?" Varish nodded. "Yes, and it will not stop until we are dead." Elias swore. "Great, just great." The war beast recovered quickly, its eyes burning with rage. Then it attacked again. Elias fired his pistol, but the bullets bounced off its thick scales. "Oh, come on." Varish dodged another swipe, her movements fluid and controlled. She was faster, but the creature was stronger. She needed help. Elias's mind raced. There had to be a way to stop this thing. Then he saw it, an exposed gas pipe on the wall. "That'll do." "Elias!" Varish shouted as the war beast lunged toward her again. Elias didn't hesitate. He aimed his pistol at the pipe and fired. The bullet pierced the metal, and with a loud hiss, gas began spewing into the tunnel. Elias grabbed Varish's arm and pulled her back. "Get down." She didn't argue. Elias took one last shot, this time at a broken power cable hanging from the ceiling. The spark ignited the gas. Boom! A massive explosion shook the tunnel, flames engulfing the war beast in a firestorm. Its roar of rage turned into a shriek of pain as the fire consumed it. Elias and Varish hit the ground, shielding themselves from the heat. Then, as quickly as it started, the explosion faded. Smoke filled the tunnel. The war beast was gone. Elias coughed, waving the smoke away. "Please tell me that thing's dead." Varish slowly stood, scanning the area. Then she nodded. "It is dead." Elias let out a long breath. "Good, because I'm really tired of almost dying today." Varish turned to him, her golden eyes studying him with something new. "You are more than a medic," she said. Elias smirked. "Yeah, well, you're more than a warrior." For a moment, they simply stood there. Then Varish nodded. "Come. We must leave before more come." Elias sighed, shaking his head as he followed her. "You know, I was hoping for a quiet day. Maybe a nap." Varish actually smiled. Humans truly are strange. Elias grinned. "You have no idea." Side by side, they disappeared into the darkness of the tunnel, moving toward the light of freedom ahead. Elias and Varish moved quickly through the dark tunnel, their footsteps echoing against the cold metal floor. The explosion had likely drawn attention, and they had no idea how many more dangers lurked in the abandoned stronghold. Elias glanced at Varish. She looked calm, but he could tell she was alert. Her golden eyes scanned every shadow, every movement. Even after nearly dying, she was still a warrior. He sighed. So, how much farther? Varish pointed ahead. Not far. The emergency exit is through that chamber. Elias followed her gaze. At the end of the tunnel, a massive door stood half open, leading to a large, dimly lit chamber. It looked like an old hangar, with rusted machinery scattered around. But something felt wrong. Elias's instincts told him they weren't alone. He gripped his pistol tighter. I don't like this. Varish nodded. Neither do I. They stepped into the hangar cautiously. The air was thick with dust, and a faint hum of old generators filled the silence. Then, a voice. Leaving so soon? Elias froze. A figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, powerful, a Jerek warrior. But this one was different. Its armor was sleek and black, covered in glowing red symbols. Its skin was a deep shade of violet, and its golden eyes burned with intelligence. Varish stiffened. Commander Zeltar. Elias tensed. I take it you two know each other. Zeltar smirked. She was once my finest soldier. His gaze shifted to Elias. And you are the foolish human who saved her. Elias narrowed his eyes. Yeah, that's me. And you must be the big bad guy who wants her dead. Zeltar chuckled. Dead? No, I do not wish for her death. He looked at Varish. I wish for her to return. Varish's expression darkened. I will never return to the Jerek Empire. Zeltar sighed. Disappointing, but not unexpected. His voice turned cold. Then you leave me no choice. He moved. In an instant, he was upon them, faster than Elias could react. Varish met him head-on. The two warriors clashed, their movements a blur of speed and power. Asterisk, fists, kicks, dodges. Asterisk, they moved like lightning, their strikes shaking the ground. Elias backed up, his pistol useless against their speed. He needed to think. His eyes darted around the hangar. There, on the far side, he saw a control panel. Maybe it could help. He ran. Zeltar noticed. Oh no, you don't. With a flick of his wrist, a blade shot out from his armor, heading straight for Elias. But before it could reach him, Varish blocked it. She grunted in pain as the blade grazed her arm, but she didn't fall. Instead, she slammed her knee into Zeltar's chest, knocking him back. Elias, go, she shouted. Elias didn't hesitate. He sprinted to the control panel, scanning the old buttons and switches. Come on, come on. Then he saw it. Emergency power surge. That could work. He slammed his fist on the button. A loud hum filled the hangar. The lights flashed brightly, and the old machinery roared to life. Electricity surged through the walls, and sparks rained down from above. Zeltar stumbled. What? Elias grinned. Surprise. Varish took her chance. She lunged, grabbing Zeltar and slamming him into the wall, right into a cluster of exposed cables. Electricity exploded around him. Zeltar screamed as the energy coursed through his body. His armor cracked, and his eyes dimmed. Then, with a final shudder, he collapsed. Silence filled the hangar. Elias exhaled. Please tell me he's dead. Varish stepped forward, looking down at Zeltar's motionless form. She nodded. He is dead. Elias sagged against the control panel. Finally, no more running, no more fighting. Can we please get out of here now? Varish smiled. A real smile. Yes, let's go. They stepped outside into the cool night air. The sky was filled with stars, and the distant ruins of an old city stretched before them. They were free. Elias took a deep breath, enjoying the feeling of not being shot at. So, what now? Varish looked at him. Now we leave this planet. Elias chuckled. Sounds good to me. She tilted her head. You saved me, Elias. I owe you a great debt. He shook his head. You don't owe me anything. Varish's golden eyes softened. Then perhaps I should stay by your side. Not out of debt, but out of choice. Elias blinked. Wait, you mean? Varish smirked. You are a strange human, Elias, but perhaps that is not a bad thing. Elias grinned. Well, I won't say no to having a badass alien warrior as a friend. She nodded. Then it is decided. We leave together. Side by side, they walked toward the horizon, ready for whatever came next.